Creating landscapes is a great way to practice composition and lighting setups. I will show you all the steps to create a landscape like this one, from the technical aspects to the creative ones. We will be using Blender and free assets to create this scene so everyone can follow along. I will also show you how I use Photoshop for the post-production. All the project files are available on my Patreon. First, we need an idea of what we want to create. Because I spend so much time watching the work of other artists in many different platforms, I will usually have dozens of saved images. With these images, I make a moodboard using PureRef, which is a free and powerful tool to manage your reference images. From this first image, what I liked was the red barn in the distance, the cows, and the big yellow trees. From the second one, I like the composition, the sky, and the dark foreground. And for the third one, I love the stormy sky and the dramatic lighting. Let's say you found some elevations and you want to recreate this building in Blender. So load the image, check the dimensions, in this case here it says 24 feet, and I will create a cube with the same dimensions. Then I will scale the elevations accordingly, and then you are set. Another thing I like to do is to clone the object with Alt-D so I can work on different elevations of the same image and keep both objects updated. I also use the add-on for extra meshes so I can add a single vertex and trace this kind of shapes. I also use the add-on for extra meshes so I can add a single vertex and trace this kind of shape. Usually for creating buildings you will only need the loop cut and knife tool, and a few insets and extrudes of course. Once the main subject is done, I create a plane so we can start the composition. I add a camera, go to constraints and use the drag to an empty axis so I can easily place the camera. I also use the shift so I can have less floor and more sky in the composition. I add a displacement with a cloud texture so the plane is not perfectly flat. And I start to import some objects. I import the trees from the free pack of Max Tree that I used in a previous video. At this point, I was sure that I wanted the yellow trees in the back, but I wasn't sure about the trees in the foreground. If you see the references, one of the images has trees in the background and the other in the foreground, but none have trees in both places. Now my favorite part, working on the lighting. Set up cycles and increase the strength just to see what I have in the scene. I also use the material override in white. I head to Polyheaven to search for an overcast sky. I rotate it until I find these really dark clouds. Because I like how dark the sky looks, but I don't like how little light I have on my scene, I use a mix shader with the light path node so I can have one setting for the visible sky and another setting for the light casting. You don't always have to stick to technical photorealistic concept. This is our scene and we can do whatever we want. I add now this dramatic sun with high strength and a high angle, so the shadows are softer, like through a busy atmosphere. I also want to have the foreground really dark, so I add a gigant cube to block the light here. As I said before, don't stick to technical photorealism. We can use any tool available to achieve the mood of our scene. I add some displacement to it so it doesn't cast perfectly straight shadows. I took this picture last winter in the countryside of the UK. I always take pictures of everything, especially when I think they can be useful in a render. Background and foreground pictures are particularly useful. I place it on a plane, which must be perpendicular to our camera. I decide if I like it. We will need to create an alpha channel for this then. We'll refine this alpha channel in a minute, but first I copy this plane so it fills the whole composition. I use some objects like the pole here to hide the seams. Just a quick refining, not the best, but who cares? Download this lovely cow. It has no scale, so I had to ask ChatGPT what's the size of a cow. Pay attention to this. I will rig this cow, just adding a very simple armature for the body, neck and head. Make sure the armature is inside the cow, then select the cow and with Shift press, select the armature and press Ctrl P, and select Automatic Weights. Then I select the armature and go to pose mode to make the cow eat grass. Don't forget to apply the armature modifier. Now I have two cows, one is eating and the other one is just there. I also downloaded this countryside object and placed it where the tank used to be. The water tank was big and I wanted the red barn to be the main subject. I import this geometry node setup that we did in another video. I will use it to scatter the grass. But first, I make this plane smaller so we don't scatter grass in places that won't be visible, thus optimizing the scene. There are better ways to do it, but this one is faster. Downloaded this plan from Quixel and just use it with the default materials. You can see that something looks off. It looks black between some plants because we are using the alpha channel, and Blender is computing one alpha channel after the other. But because there are so many objects and alpha channels, we run out of passes, so we need to increase the transparent passes amount. Now I make the plants appear as bounding boxes, so I have less geometry on the scene, because actually I want to copy this plane and geometry node to add even more plants. I'm impressed with how well Blender is handling all this geometry. Finally, I add an extra option to my geometry node. I add an enable and disable switch so I can just disable all these plans and keep working without this crazy love of geometry in the scene. I will turn it on before rendering. I added the redwood planks, the unwrap is a mess so I will use cube projection, and now it looks good. I rotate these faces so all the planks are vertical. I add the roof material. I won't even bother using a displacement, but I should have. Anyway, this does the trick. Now we are done. I turn on the geometry node with the plans, and we are ready to render this and export it as a PNG. Let's jump to Photoshop. This is an image that we did in a previous video. I'm just recycling some leakage and dirt masks to apply them to the barn. Found an image of birds. I removed the background, used the contrast option to refine the mask and avoid having the white edges around the birds. And I place it somewhere around here. It's time for camera raw. I lower the highlights, increase the contrast and exposure a little bit, add some vignetting and play with the curves. Also color grade the shadows to make them a little bit bluish to have a nice color contrast with the yellowish midtones. Sorry this part is not clearly visible in the shown screen, but I'm just adding curves as adjustment layers to increase or decrease the exposure and then creating masks. My idea is to light up the main subject and make the context darker to make it stand out even more. Also making the red stronger and painting a quick mask on the barn so it looks even more worn. I'm just starting my channel and I appreciate your thoughts. Please let me know if you have any questions as well. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe as I'm planning to upload more content like this. Thanks for watching.